Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Fintech Ki Baat Dil Se. Today we have with us founder of Plum, Mr. Abhishek Poddar. Abhishek, thank you so much for joining us and giving us an opportunity to learn from your learnings.
Hey Shreyas, hey Sagrika, thanks so much for having me here.
Pleasure is all ours. Abhishek, before we start, we just love if you can give audience a quick background about you and a bit about Plum.
Hey, absolutely. So Plum is a company that I started almost 2 years ago, making employee health insurance more accessible, more affordable, and more usable for companies of all sizes. Companies as small as 2 employees, company as large as 20,000 employees. We have been growing really fast in the last 2 years. We have more than 1,000 companies that are using Plum. My background is I've been building product and companies for the last 10 years, and we can go more into the detail of my own journey, but that's a quick background about the company and myself.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So Abhishek, I think to delve in a little more on your journey, would love to know on how you and Siddharth end up meeting. Sorry, not Siddharth. Let me take that again.
Saurabh.
Yeah. So Abhishek, just to get a little bit into your journey, we'd love to know how did the idea of Plum get started up, and how did you and Saurabh end up meeting, and how did it all just turn out to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Both Saurabh and I are we have both been entrepreneurs in our past lives as well. And this was back in 2019. We were figuring out what's the next thing that we want to do. Two things that were very similar. One was we both wanted to build something that would last beyond our own lifetime. So we're very aligned in terms of the kind of things that we wanted to build. And number two was we were both looking at similar kind of problem in the space of employee and employee health insurance. And we got connected. It was very surreal. We got connected through a mutual friend. We were actually talking about very similar idea to this mutual friend, and he said, "Hey, you and Saurabh should at least connect and bounce off your ideas to each other." So we met, and then we kind of dated for 6 months. When I say dating, we spent a lot of time building things together without even formalizing the company or our founder setup. And this was more to get used to this idea that, hey, we are two co-founders who can work together for a very long time. I think one thing that was very clear for us was figuring out who the co-founder is can make or break a company. So we spent a lot of time investing and building that relationship that hey, we are doing this formally together.
That sounds super interesting. I just have a quick follow-up question. So, how did you know that Saurabh was the one? Like he was the co-founder that you wanted. Like, when was that moment? How did you realize that?
Yeah, I don't think there was one single moment. It was a journey. Uh, I think both Saurabh and I would have individually met probably 20, 30 potential co-founders during that time. But I think what resonated well was our own thought process of what we wanted to build. And when I say what, this is not about the specific product that we wanted to build. This is about why we want to build a company in the first place. We were very sure that this time around, we want to build something that can keep us busy for the next 10, 20 years at least, right? Which means it has to be a meaningful opportunity where we are not just spending 2, 3 years and then we are going to get acquired by another company, right? Or we will flip the company to something else. So I think one was that idea behind why we are building this. And then what also resonated was how we thought about company, right? We were in our first coffee chat, we were both talking about building a team, how we think about prioritizing, how we think about what's important for a company. And there we saw a lot of resonance in terms of how we align, and that gave us initial ideas that hey, this looks like this seems like this will work out as a partnership because we are very aligned in terms of why and the how and the what. I think if you're aligned at that level, then the exact idea that you're working on can be figured out, and you would see a lot of startups who would go through pivots as well, right? Because you can never be sure that the first idea that you pick up will actually work out. So those time you're aligned on why you're building a company and how you're building, that partnership of the founders will stay together.
Perfect. I think that is really insightful. This actually, I'm glad we actually touched upon this topic. This is a very prevalent problem amongst single founders. And ultimately, what happens is when they go to raise their first pre-seed round, investors are like, yeah, you need to have more expertise in your team. You need to have a tech guy who's invested. You need to have a business guy who's invested. And then they go out and search for founders, but ultimately, they don't know how to go about it. And if they end up with the wrong founders, I have seen really great ideas collapse. Like none of them is actually wrong, but they are wrong for each other. Like the thoughts don't match and all of that, right? And that is when the company collapses. So if you were to summarize in, let's say, three or 4 points on how do you find suitable co-founder, what would they be?
Yeah, I would say one, meet a lot of people. This is true with anything that you do, right? Which is create as large a top of the funnel as possible. We talk about that in marketing, but this is very much true in finding a co-founder as well. So be extrovert, go and talk to people, go and talk to like-minded people. Spend a lot of time building building those initial ideas with one or two people that you would have shortlisted. Spend, when I say meaningful time, at least a few months, if not 6 months or a year, because in the initial phase, everything will look very rosy. You will say, hey, yeah, this looks very exciting. You want to do this together. But when you actually start building real product, real company, is when you start realizing the nuances of people and the potential co-founders. So number two, spend time. Number three, be thoughtful about what kind of company you want to build, why you want to build, how you want to build, and have those kind of open conversations early on with your co-founder. Don't restrict your conversation on just the idea. Talk about, hey, this is my area of expertise. Does that resonate with you? Can you compliment me, right? Or hey, these are the kind of people that I want to recruit. Does that resonate with you? Do you also like to hire that kind of people? Or hey, this is my style of managing people or leading. Those very candid conversations with the potential co-founders.
Got it. I think this is super interesting, Abhishek. This was really insightful. What do you, Sagarika? Do you have any questions around this?
So Abhishek, I think thanks for that. I love hearing stories of how two founders met. Apart from that, I think the second most important part for building a company is the whole idea that you come up with, right? So if I'm not wrong, you were in Hypertruck before you started Plum. So what kind of inspired you to start this particular company, or why this particular idea is what you thought of pursuing back then?
Yeah, so a combination of three things. One is some of the personal experience of running a company. Number two was a lot of interviews with the potential customers, and number three is market research, right? So so quick context on Plum, right? The problem that we are solving is that health insurance is not accessible for smaller sized companies, especially early stage startups, and then the employee experience is broken. That was some of the experience that both Saurabh and I had when we were running companies, and we had this idea that hey, we want to solve problem in this space. But what we knew, so that was the first part, right, which is our own experience. But our past experience of building companies taught us that hey, you cannot just extrapolate your experience or your problems to world's problems, right? So we wanted to make sure that we are talking to more potential customers to understand if this is a larger problem or just our problem. So we met probably 100 plus companies. When I say companies, think of HR leaders, founders. We got the question that we would ask is, hey, if assume you had Plum Live today, would you swipe your credit card? And the answer we got was yes from a lot of these companies. So that was a second data point for us that hey, this is a genuine problem that we are solving. And the third was we wanted to get context on the industry. We were two people who didn't have any insurance background. So we did a lot of research. We met a lot of industry experts to understand, hey, how does insurance industry play out? And got a lot of data point on why no one has really solved this problem in the past and how our three starting points, which is some of our experience backed by the data point from the customers and then further backed by the market research that we did.
Okay, got it. So, just quickly wanted to understand, right? When you were doing all of this research and all of that, when was it that you realized that, yeah, dude, I mean, this is what I want to do and I can leave my current job and jump into this? Yeah, idea बड़ा बनने वाला है. मतलब इस पे 100% लगा सकता हूँ. Like, what was that moment?
Yeah, so see, we had just a bit of context. Both of us, we had completely moved out of our previous engagements or our own companies before we started even exploring what we want to do, right? So we were not hedging in the first place that, hey, we will keep ideating and till the time we don't solidify, we won't move out of our previous company. So that's just a bit of context. And the reason is we wanted to be 100% committed to what we were doing. We didn't want to hedge in the first place.
Agreed.
When did this idea solidify? This idea solidified, I think, after a period of 6 months. Very interestingly, this was the very first idea that we wanted to. Those 6 months, we probably explored like 15 other things. And when I say explored, talking to customers and doing the research, eventually we came back to the first idea that we had, and I think that was our there was a data point to us, which is, hey, we really believe in this idea, and that's the reason we keep coming back to that original idea of what we wanted to build around employee health insurance. So I think that was the point where we thought, hey, this is an area where we can actually commit a very long time because we have such deep belief in this.
Got it. I think this is amongst founders who have been really successful, or where the startup has actually been successful, which is that the founders have actually left the previous organizations when they know that they have that conviction that they believe in the idea, and then they start working on prototyping and ideating and more, right? If people are stuck in hedging their risks, they are not going to give their 100%, and ultimately they are not going to lift up the startup. मतलब वो दोनों चीज एक साथ नहीं manage हो पाते. So that is what I've seen. I think it's really good that you pointed that out.
And I think that's also changing, right? It's the risk appetite in the society that is increasing over a period of time. Like 5 years ago, they hedged. Now people have the risk appetite, and the society is also more forgiving in terms of people leaving the job and taking the risk.
Agreed. I think that dialogue, this reminds me of that dialogue from Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, which I think really resonates over here. कहीं पे पहुंचने के लिए कहीं से निकलना बहुत जरूरी है, and that is what actually makes a lot of sense over here. So I think it was great hearing about your journey. Let's just moving on to what actually Plum does now. So just a quick question around the employee health insurance or the group health insurance segment in general. Why did you think that this is going to be big, or why do you still believe in that? Why did you choose?
No, so I think three core beliefs that we have, Shreyas. So number one, we are going through a fundamental shift in terms of how health insurance has penetrated India. we are seeing a massive increase in awareness of health insurance, and that's driven by multiple reasons. One is how expensive healthcare is becoming. The healthcare inflation in India is almost 3 times the regular inflation. Given what kind of unexpected treatments are coming up, which are very, very expensive, if you actually survey people now versus, let's say, 2 years ago, you will see almost a 10x increase in the awareness of health insurance in India. So the current penetration of sub 20% will actually reach to 100% plus kind of penetration in the next 10 to 15 years. Our belief number 2 is that this level of penetration will be driven largely by either the government sponsored health insurance or the employer sponsored health insurance, and not so much by the retail health insurance where people are buying insurance on their own. And this is because our per capita income, right? If you look at the per capita income, not more than 10% of the people can really afford health insurance on their own. So the 90% of our one will depend on the government and the employer-sponsored health insurance. And the government has taken a very ambitious target of sponsoring 500 million people through Ayushman Bharat. So the question really becomes what happens to this rest 700 million people? And there our belief is it's going to be driven by employer-sponsored insurance. And the third belief is that most of the innovation that has happened in India has been on the retail insurance side, and nothing has really changed on the employer-employee side. And that's the area where we are driving a change. We believe that that's the largest segment and that's the fastest growing segment. If you actually look at the data by see insurance is actually the largest and the fastest growing segment, but no one is really touching that, right? So those are the 3 fundamental reasons why Plum exists. The way we think of Plum is we are essentially reimagining how employer-employee insurance is supposed to be, and we want to make it available to companies of all sizes and really provide a high quality experience to the employees and their family members.
Got it. I think this is really interesting. Coincidentally, I just want to let you know, I'm actually a Plum user. The organization where I work, they have tied up with you guys, and I think you guys have an amazing interface. If I wanted to go in and take maybe doctor's appointments and talk about mental health to someone, or maybe to talk about any other personal issues that I'm having, from mental health to physical health and all of that, it's directly available on here and I can directly book slots. So I think you have built a great product. The validation is there. I'm just looking forward to what great stuff you guys do. So just wanted to say that. Sagrik, over to you.
Thanks, Shiraz. So Abhishek, on what you said, I just kind of wanted to ask a follow-up question. We talk a lot about insurance penetration being very less in India, right? In fact, even though I have been into the fintech space since last 2.5, 3 years, and all these segments are growing way too fast, except maybe insurance, and not a lot of players are coming into it. If they do, they find it very difficult to kind of scale up to the extent that other players are into lending and payment space. So why, number one, do you think is the low what's the main reason of low penetration in India?
So 2 things, right? One, insurance actually is growing really fast. I will correct that insurance is not a slow growing segment. It has been growing at 20% plus year on year for the last 7-8 years, right? So, if you read some of the articles by Y Combinator, they say if there is a large industry growing at 10% plus year on year, that's a fantastic industry to bet on, right? So it's actually a very fast growing industry, a very large industry. The challenge is the size of opportunity is so big, right? Insurance is a product that you can imagine the entire 1.4 billion population can eventually get insured, right? So the size of the opportunity, to that size of the opportunity, it looks like we are very underpenetrated. But if you look at insurance in an absolute figure, or the absolute size of the industry, it's already a very large and a very fast growing industry. So it's think of this as both as an opportunity that exist because of what is possible, but I would definitely correct it that it's not a small or a slow growing industry.
That's what I thought, and I kind of reckon to your thoughts on that. A lot of players or whoever kind of pitches to us on insurance end up saying that insurance is a uh, not a fast growing industry, but I think I kind of reckon on your thoughts. Shreya, over to you.
Is that Shays, is that breaking for me or sorry, I'm having slightly hard time hearing Sagrika.
She has a patchy network.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure if it's my network.
Apparently, I'm at NPCI and they're not letting me use the Wi-Fi, so I have to live on mobile hotspot right now.
Okay, no worries. So I just had a quick follow-up question. It's an interesting behavioral psychology that I was pondering about, right? So when you look at Indian market, the investors are known to be a bit more risk averse than the global investors. When you look at the insurance segment, I think that should ideally be, at least specifically health insurance, should be a no-brainer for someone with that kind of a psychology. But for some reason, we are still seeing it to be very underpenetrated. Like health insurance right now is a no-brainer, like considering the pandemic and everything, and it is definitely reflected. But why do you think it was such before that? Right, it was still like 4 to 5% penetrated, and it was like 96% market was up for grabs. What do you think was the reason for that?
Yeah, I think two reasons. One, it's very highly regulated in India. You need a lot of licenses to play in this. Number two, uh, I think there is a bit of association with different industry over a period of time. And unfortunately, insurance was one of those industry that people treated as a very old industry, and for the rightful reasons in a way. Right? It is truly one of the oldest industry. It has existed for last uh, uh, 3-4 centuries now. And the largest companies that exist globally, if you think of a MetLife or a Prudential, these are companies and brands that were created hundreds of years ago, right? So, for that reason, the mental mapping of everyone, including the investors and the entrepreneurs, is that hey, this is a really old industry, and the the mental mapping is especially that is more cutting edge, more at the forefront of creating a new industry rather than going and disrupting a very old industry. So I think those were the two reasons,
Agreed.
which is one is it's a regulated industry which most of the startups want to avoid, and number two, the mental mapping that hey, this is an old industry, I don't understand it, uh, I don't want to disrupt, I would rather go and build something new.
Agreed. I think I completely understand, right? Everyone in this startup industry wants to do something cool, and insurance was never traditionally cool. But there needed to be innovation, for it to, come to that level where people wanted to start disrupting. And now we have seen, startups like Riska. There are a couple more players in the APIification of insurance industry, APIs and all of that. So I think the space is definitely has picked up in the past couple of years, and I think COVID has definitely helped all of that. So since you guys have been working with so many small companies as well as startups to enable their employees' well-being through your products, what has been the trend that you're seeing, as you go from, let's say, Generation X to Millennials to Gen Z? What's the trend that you're seeing in the form of awareness, in the form of let's say, if a Gen Z versus a millennial versus a Gen X is joining a company, which one is the one? I mean, which generation would be the one to go and demand, say, hey, I want insurance benefits, or else I'm not joining the startup?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
what
no,
are
so
the
I
trends?
think number one, at a more broader level, employees asking for these kind of health benefits has substantially increased in the last 2 years. We have seen many incidences of companies setting up insurance because potential employees want to have this employee benefit set up. We have seen many different instances of that. Now, which segment do we hear this more from? I would say the awareness definitely exists in people who are, let's say, 30 plus years, 35 plus years, because of two reasons. One, they have parents who really need insurance more than anyone else, and hence they want that coverage from their employer. And number two, these people also tend to have dependent family members, be it spouse or kids, and hence again they need more than a 20, 25-year-old person. So definitely that demand exists more in that segment compared to a 20-year-old joining a company. I don't even think of that, hey, I should ask this from my employer.
Definitely. I think the more the responsibilities, the more the demand is increased. So definitely, I think Gen X and millennials would be more essentially inclined to ask for these kind of benefits. Perfect. I think, Sagarika, over to you if you have any questions.
Yes. So, Abhishek, I mean, very interestingly, a few months back, I think I was kind of looking for buying insurance for our company employees, right? And as any other individual who's not a pro in insurance, I got lost in kind of all the insurance products that are, right? So just to push on a question out there, and how has kind of technology kind of helped the segment grow so far, and how does it kind of ease the process of maybe choosing insurance for a small employee company, for a big employee company, etc.?
No, definitely. I think the COVID-19 has massively accelerated some of the tech initiatives. Just had to sell and interact with customers remotely. They had to underwrite remotely. They had to make the claims process completely remote, and hence they were forced to adopt technology. Interestingly, the insurance startups have led a lot of these innovations across the life cycle of insurance, right? The life cycle of insurance being what is the product, what is the pricing, how do you distribute, how do you market, and then how do you do the claims disbursement. Across that life cycle, we have seen the usage of technology, right? So to give you an example on pricing, we have seen how you can use to personalize the pricing for, let's say, a more healthier company compared to a slightly less healthy company, or a more healthy individual compared to a less healthy individual, so that a more healthy individual pays a lower pricing compared to the other person, so that they're not cross-subsidizing the insurance for each other. People are paying the right price. And so it's not about making it cheap, it's about making the price accurate to that individual or to that business using data. Similarly, if you think of a policy issuance used to take weeks, let's say a year ago, 2 years ago, and now we have seen some of our real-time policy issuance. We have seen a lot of companies, and you would have read this in the news, a lot of companies are doing distribution of bite-sized insurance. When I say bite-sized, think about 20 rupees, 50 rupees insurance products. And the great thing about this is it is helping the customers who warm up to this idea of having insurance in the first place. These are customers who have never ever bought any insurance. So this is their introduction to insurance as a product, so that then they can go and buy a more holistic insurance product, let's say, over the next 1 to 2 years. So these are some examples of how we are seeing technology India.
Thanks, Abhishek. Just one quick question. Is it safe to say that COVID is for insurance what demonetization was for payments?
Hey, sorry, I missed that, Sagarika. You'll have to repeat that.
Sorry, I was asking, is it safe to say that COVID is for insurance what demonetization was for payments?
To some extent, yes. I mean, they're both pros and cons, but it has definitely accelerated both the push for technology and the awareness why.
Understood.
All right, great. I think that was a really good answer, Sagarika. And Abhishek, thank you so much. I think it has been a very insightful conversation with you.
Okay, thank you so much, Shreyas, and thank you so much, Sagrika, for having me.